Hi, good day. I'm Ravi, and we are continuing to look at the Golang language from the point of view of a C# developer. Today, we are going to explore control structures. On my right, I got my C# code with all the various control structures we have in C#, and we will implement them in Go. The first one, if. In Go, if is very similar to how it looks in C#. So let's go. Let's say status, create a variable called status, control equals, okay, and the if condition. If status double equals okay, fmt.println, making a note we are doing this for if and status. That's pretty much it. And one key difference is the parenthesis is mandatory. Whereas in C# for single line statements, it is optional. You always need to have parentheses, and they need to be in the line, the same line as the if condition. If else, exactly similar to start with, and then you have an else, and that's it. Pretty self-explanatory. Let's do this for completeness though. And just let's say status equal to bad. So we going to do this thing. So let's quickly run this. So the first one we're going to the okay, the second one we're going to bad. Okay, let me get rid of this one. And the next one is switch. So the switch in C# is here. So on the top it looks pretty similar. So but there are some key differences in switch. So let's do this. Switch. And before we do that, let's create a variable we can switch. So let's say id colon equals 0, and then we are going to switch on id and parenthesis, and then we go have a various case statements, case 0 and fmt.print, and let's do and the 0 actually. Let's say id. The colon is on after this case. Okay, and just to make it clearer, let's do a print here. Okay, so that's a simple switch, and let's just copy this a few more times. And then we can have a default. And instead of ID, let's say okay, here you go. So now if I quickly run this, so it goes into switch of the first block because our ID is 0. Up to here is pretty self-explanatory. One key difference you might have already noticed. In Golang, we don't have break statements like we do in C#. So the break is implicit. So That's one thing. What's the second thing? We can have fall throughs in Golang. So we'll look at that. So let's say the ID is 0 and we add the fall through keyword here and run this again. It's going to fall through to the second block as well. Just to make it clear, I'm going to get rid of the ID and make the actual number so it is clear which block is executing. So let's run this again. So switch 0, 1, so it executes that, goes into the fall through. Because of that, it goes into the next case block and does that as well. So you can have as many fall throughs as you want. So if I put this in a few more blocks, so I can say fall through here and as well as here. Let's if you run that. So here you go. So it goes in there, fall through, fall through, fall through, fall through here, and then there's no fall through and it finishes. So that's an interesting thing you can do in the Golang switch. The other thing you can do is the break. So you can say, let's say this, right? And if you say if some condition true, and you say break. Let's get rid of that. Let's move the fall through to that. And let's see what happens here. So here it only goes into the first case, even though there is a fall through. We are saying because this condition is satisfied, I want to break, and that breaks out of the switch. So you can use breaks in switch statements, but this break is not the break same as what you have in C#. This break is about this is more about the loop of the switch. So this is the same as you have a while break in the while loop and for loops in C#, and not the context of break in Go is different. This context of break in Golang is at the switch level. I hope you understand. Hope I'm explaining clearly. So that's switch. The next one, for loop. And so let's do for loop. Let's just say print. We're gonna print for, and let's do a simple loop for I colon equals to 0 semicolon, I less than 10 semicolon, I plus plus, and open parenthesis, and let's save that, and we just print it. Let's just copy that line. What are we missing? For I, it's saying, why do we get a squiggly line? Expected Boolean or range expression, found assignment, missing parenthesis around composite literal. I am not sure. let's run this. Maybe unexpected I, expecting parenthesis. That's because, here you go. That was a bit, we still have the problem. Unexpected I, expecting parenthesis. Here you go. We were missing a semicolon. I was blind. So there you go. I'm not going to edit this out because that's what you do when you're coding. So here you go. The for is 0, 1, 2, 0 to 9, and that's a simple for. And let's do a nested for. Let's copy this whole thing. So like we discussed in the switch, for the for, you can use both continue and break. So I'm not going to go into detail how you're going to do it because it's going to be exactly the same as you did for the switch. The continue lets you skip the remaining code block and goes into the next loop, and break is going to break out of the for loop. Nested for. And for nested for, so we got a for loop, and let's add another loop inside the loop, and we need to add another bracket. So let's call the inner one, outer one, x, and the inner one, y, and y, and let's print both x and y. So we're gonna see, let's just quickly run this. So it prints both the thing. I'm just gonna reduce the number of loops we do just for brevity, so we don't need. So here you go. So there are a few things you can do in a nested for. You could do that in the for as well, but explaining that we're using a nested for makes it a bit more clear. Break. So you can do break. Break works the same as in a normal for. So if you have a break here, let's say if y greater than 4, and we say break. Yeah, parenthesis. And clear. Okay, break. So if y is greater than 4, it's breaking. So we don't see a y5 in the prints. But it's breaking the immediate for loop. What if you wanted to break outside of the outer loop as well? To do that in Golang, you can label your for loops. So you can actually have a label here, say outer for, and so that's a label. So it's basically saying I'm not using it, so let's use that. So we can say if y is greater than 4, we are going to break. What that's going to do, it's going to break out of the outer for. So if I just run that again, here you go. So let's make it a bit more clearer. So it's going to break and it's not going to execute the rest of the for loop. So let's actually make it 1. So here you go, nested for. It only does until 0, 1, and then it fully breaks. So if I don't use this, let me comment that out. It's only going to break from the inner loop. But if I have a labeled break, out for, then it's going to break out of the outer loop as well. So this makes it easier to have nested loops, nested loops, and you can break out of nested loops. So like this, you can have maybe a 6-level deep nested loop, and you can break out of the whichever level you want to break out of. So that is break, and you also have continue. So similar to continue, it's going to continue to the next one. So you can say if, let's make this 4, 3 again, and if I say if y greater than 1, continue. So here, if it's y greater than 1, it's continuing, so it's not going into this prints. You can also do continue out of for. So instead of just continuing, you can say continue out of for. So you can have label. So you can use the label for both break and continue. So in this case, it is, if y is greater than 1, it is continuing with the outer for loop. So let me actually say print, make this clear, this is inner. And let's put a print in the inner and the outer, so we know where we are exactly. So nested for inner, we are inner. You go into the outer loop, then we go inner, 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 and we break. So let's put a break here. Out for. And let's put this as well. Continue. And so nested for inner, and then we hit the continue, which just takes us to the outer for again. So now we are in outer, and so on. So you get the idea. So you can label your breaks and continues to a specific label. So this would be useful if you got lots of levels of loops, and then you need to go or break or continue to a particular level. So you don't really have to do complex flags. How you would generally do it in C# would be you would have some flags, and you would say true x some flag equal to true, and then in the outer loop we will say if that is true, you skip the rest. It simplifies the code quite a bit this way. You just basically label your breaks and just go there. That's pretty much the, what else do we have left? So for each. Okay, next is our for each. Let me see. For each. Okay. Let's create a variable to loop over. So let's say w equals 0, colon equals 0, and if empty dot print. We're gonna do for each, and let's use the structure itself is going to be very similar. So it explicitly, Golang does not explicitly have a for each verb. So, but the same thing could be achieved using a for loop. So you say for, and you can use an underscore here because we are not we don't really care, we are not foring over a particular thing. So we basically say for underscore, and you can say id colon equals to range of IDs. So you need an array for this. So we need a range. So IDs, we'll create an array of numbers, colon equals to, let's say we have an array of length 3 and int, and we parentheses, and we can say 1, 2, 3. So this is going to create as an array of 1, 2, and 3, and range IDs, open parenthesis, close parenthesis, and fmt dot print colon and the ID itself. Okay, let's go through this a bit more detail. So we have an array of integers, and we are going to loop over the array of integers. This basically means we don't care about that particular section of the for loop, and we are assigning the current selected ID from the range. So we're going to range over the ID and print it out. Let's do that. I'm going to comment this section so it's not confusing in the output. Actually, I'm just going to quickly repeat that. Just a reminder, all the code is there in GitHub, so you'll still be able to see it in GitHub. So we got, let's get rid of all this as well. So for each 1, 2, and 3. And that's pretty much it. So that's the implementation of for each in Golang. And the next one is we wanted to do an while loop. Again, Golang does not have a structure for while loop. We pretty much, the for becomes the everything in Golang. So everything is done through the for loop. So with a while loop, so let's say do a variable w equal to 0, and let's do, so go print that while we are doing while with the while loop, and let's do this for, start with for, w less than 3, so you don't actually have to say these are, so this is slightly different to what we did previously. So you basically just go w for w less than 3 and then loop, and that's pretty much it. So you basically print w. One important thing to remember here is you need to increment your value, or else you're going to be in a continuous loop. So that, let's run it. So we did the same thing for the while loop, and again it's pretty self-explanatory, so that's pretty much it. And the next thing we do was the do while loop. This is slightly different to the while loop because the condition happens after the fact. In Golang it's very similar to this. So here you would let's do this. We'll use the same variable, just remove the greater assignment, and let's do this is the do while, and here you can remove the condition check from the top, so it's going to go into the loop whenever, and you can say if w greater than 3, for example, and we use our break. And like we discussed previously, whenever we are using breaks and continues in Golang, you can use a labeled break and continue. So that's pretty much it. So we are saying it's gonna go, let's run it. So do while does the same thing, but the condition checks happens inside the loop. And so this for with open close braces, if it's gonna go, it's going to spin continuously if you don't have a break. So it's mandatory to have a break in this structure. Uh, that's all for now. Thanks for watching. Uh, I'm not too big on editing in the sense like whatever mistakes I do, whatever thinking I'm doing while on the video, I'm just going to keep it because that gives you a real understanding of how we are writing it and fixing our own mistakes. Thank you. See you in the next video.